It's the end of a 16-hour day. And I am so exhausted, my bones ache. I'm searching everywhere, anywhere for a hotel that has rooms to spare. My country director, Amwando, assures me that this hotel will have rooms. It's our 5th attempt, so I'm reluctant to even get out of the car. But as I slowly pour myself out of the car, I become aware that there seem to be an awful lot of people around for this hour of the morning. A lot of young men and really interestingly dressed young women, and there was a lot of lights and what kind of a hotel is this? Well, it's a hotel mainly for prostitutes, but they have rooms. And that's when I lost it. How did I get here? How did I get here at 1 o'clock in the morning in Kisumu, Kenya, where the desk clerk thinks I'm a prostitute? How does that happen to me? Pull yourself together, Theresa. Remember that this is what you were uniquely designed to do. This is your purpose. I've spent 700,000 miles traveling around the world in the last 7 years, 700,000 really uncomfortable coach miles, taking me to developing countries all over the world. I've gotten to know thousands of impoverished artisans from different races, different cultures, different religions. And despite how different each and every one of these villages are, I began to realize that they all had a common thread. Pockets of peace in the middle of the most unimaginable poverty and hardship. And as I began to study these pockets of peace a little more closely, it became clear that the pockets of peace centered around very specific types of people. What is it that these people have that can enable them to smile like this despite their condition? My over 20 years as a journalist, where I met Malcolm, compelled me to start asking questions, lots and lots of questions. And over years of observation and thousands of questions, a clear picture began to emerge that where I found these pockets of peace, there was someone operating in their purpose. Much like when a pebble is tossed into a pond, their purpose enabled them to create ripples of peace and energy around them, spreading far beyond what they could ever think or imagine. My observation that our purpose creates peace crossed culture, religion, and race. And it led me to only one possible conclusion, that where our purpose begins, so begins peace for the human race. What would our world be like if we could all find where our purpose begins and start creating more of these very powerful chain reactions? That question led me on a journey that enabled me to understand my own life and how I ended up at that hotel for prostitutes in Kisumu, Kenya. This is the advertisement photo that the adoption agency used to find me a home. My mom was in prison. My dad was in Vietnam. Raised by a sister that I thought was my mom, I was taken at the age of 4 due to abuse and neglect. For the next 2 years, I bounced from foster home to foster home. I know what it's like to be abused. I know what it's like to have no parents. And I know what it's like to be poor, to get your vegetables from the dumpster, and the shame of my specially colored lunch card. But all of those things were gifts because they created the foundation of my unique design. What's yours? We all have one. And when we are operating and find our unique design, it leads us right to where our purpose begins. Finding it takes courage. The journey is often painful, and it requires true self-reflection. But from all my travels, I can assure you that the world is counting on all of us to embrace our unique design, because it leads to where our purpose begins. I traced my dad to a soup kitchen when I was 24 years old. And in November of 1991, it was a cold day, there he sat. I looked at him and I said, I don't know how to tell you this, but I'm your daughter. And then I held my breath. Without blinking, he said, your name is Theresa Ann. You were born November 7th, 1967, and your blood type is O positive. Wow. He went on to tell me that my mom was a heavy drinker during her pregnancy with me, and that he had been rushed back from Vietnam to give me a blood transfusion that saved my life. His unique design, his purpose, creating peace in what surely must have been chaos. The good news is I did finally get adopted. The bad news, it was by crazy people. I mean, seriously, who gives their kid a pet skunk? Who does that? His name was Trampus, and he loved macaroni and cheese. And if it wasn't Trampus the skunk, it was Trixie the raccoon or the possum. I'm on a TED stage, and I just said possum that lived in my mom's hair. You can't make that up. But my travels around the world taught me that all of that crazy and everything that led up to it was my unique design, and it led me to the exact place where my purpose began, giving voice to children without parents who are poor, but who are absolutely determined to survive. All those things that I went through as a kid created the foundation for my unique design so that I could live a purpose in a way that no one else in the world possibly could. And you can do the same thing. Maybe your purpose is being an encourager, like all of those who sent me cards and letters of support during a time of crisis. That inspired me to start the Blessing Basket Project as my way to pay forward to them what they had done in my life. Your purpose doesn't have to be big, it can be simple. But the thing is that when you ask those people whose cards are in that basket, they probably wouldn't even remember sending the card. And that's what often happens. We're so busy looking for our purpose that we actually miss the fact that we're right in the middle of it. Or we create economic conditions for ourselves that prevent us from listening to that still, small, purposeful voice inside. It actually shuts it down. When we are living in our purpose, you know it when it happens because you feel more peaceful inside. Your household becomes more peaceful, our communities become more peaceful, and it ultimately creates powerful chain reactions that lead to a more peaceful world. I know that for a fact because I spent time with Asampana. She lives in the village of Niarga, and she suffered a life that none of us in this room can possibly imagine. Yet, she can still smile like this. When you ask Asampana how old she is, she'll say, you know the one they call old man? Oh, yeah, I do. I knew him when he was a baby. She's very proud of how old she is. And I'm also very proud to say that she too adopted me, and she's my African grandmother. You know what she told me that she's the most proud about? is that despite the intensity of her poverty, she never begged. Her fierce determination to survive with dignity set an example for her entire village. And that's it. That's her purpose. You see the peace in her eyes? If you want to experience that, then it is imperative that you look at your unique design not as paralyzing, not as an excuse for inaction, but as a gift, a powerful tool that will guide you to where your purpose begins. And when we are in our purpose, we create ripples of peace and energy that can spread that energy to others. And I know that because about a mile away from Asampana lives Adombila. She's never been to school. She can't read. She can't write. What purpose could life possibly have uniquely equipped this simple village woman for? Adombila gave birth to 3 children who died before they could walk. Then she gave birth to 2 sons. And then she gave birth to a daughter. And that is the moment that Adombila's purpose began. You see, her shame and her frustration of her own illiteracy and all that it had cost her in her life turned to anger when she was turned away from a bank while she tried to open a bank account. She couldn't read the bank documents that she also couldn't sign. She was watching her daughter grow, and Adombila knew that unless someone did something, her daughter was going to face a life with no future, no opportunity. That unique design compelled Adombila to reach inside, and what came out was a purpose so big, it changed her entire generation, an entire generation. She started a school for girls, the only public junior high school for girls in the entire Upper East region of Ghana, Africa. You see, Adombila used her unique design to start a mother's club. And with each woman giving what little they had, they raised enough money for benches and a chalkboard. And despite being turned away from that bank, where Adombila needed to open a bank account so they can continue to save, she kept going. Inspired by their mothers, some of these daughters started walking more than an hour one way to get to school. They were subject to the wind and the rain and the lizards falling from the tree. Some wondered if the school would even survive. And then the Blessing Basket Project showed up and put a little wind in Adombila's sails. Today, the school boasts an enrollment of over 400 girls. It's a model school. It's got a library, a computer lab, and bathrooms. Oh, and the girls, they test as some of the smartest in the country. Every single girl in the village of Nyarga is now in school. And even more miraculous, they're graduating high school. And for the first time in the village's history, girls like Gloria Atia are going to college. They're going to become doctors and nurses and lawyers. Adombila used her unique design to live her purpose, which was to end female illiteracy in her village. All because a determined Asampana's purpose rippled to Adombila's, whose purpose was so big it changed an entire generation. And if these 2 simple village women in the middle of Africa who live without running water or electricity or bathrooms can do it, so can you. Because when we are living our purpose, there is no question it leads to ripple effects that create peace for the human race. My purpose got its wings here at Washington University through this group of students. Now, if you ask them, they wouldn't think that they were operating in their purpose, but there was something that uniquely designed these students to share knowledge. They took the Blessing Basket Project plan out of my head and put it onto paper. And they helped me define our prosperity wages model, which is now patent pending. We went on to become the first and only nonprofit in the history of Washington University to ever win the Olin Cup. Washington University would continue to immerse me in knowledge and help me perfect that prosperity wages model so that I could pay it to women like Majida. Forced into an abusive marriage at the age of 14, she also has never been to school, cannot read, cannot write, and her mother died during childbirth. But you see, Majida, that is her unique design, and it led her to her purpose. When Majida's husband left her, she started weaving baskets for a middleman who sold them as fairly traded here in the United States. But she will tell you that after a decade, she could only eat once a day and she wore rags and could dream of nothing but survival. But that pain that she had endured in life, it uniquely equipped her, it wired her for bravery, it helped her recognize opportunity and go run and grab it with both hands. That middleman had been paying Majida the US equivalent of $1 for her baskets. For that exact same basket, our prosperity wages model pays Majida the US equivalent of $11.45. In just 3 short years, Majida was able to do something unheard of for a Bengali woman. She bought land in her own name for rice. And when I asked Majida, what does it feel like to know that you're never going to go hungry again? And her peace, it ripples to everyone around her, creating a more peaceful village filled with entrepreneurs that she helped inspire. As one of our first graduates in Bangladesh, Majida Khatun is living a life free, sustainably free of poverty through entrepreneurship. The world is daring you. Embrace your unique design, because it leads to the place where your purpose begins. And when we are living in our purpose, we create ripples of peace and energy that can ultimately lead to a more peaceful world. Majida Khatun, despite being a simple village woman, has some advice for you.
আমার মনে থেকেই নিয়েছি যে আমি আর বনবো না। আমার শেষ হাউসটা এমনি জেগেছে যে আমি আর বনবো না। আমার অনেক অনেক পাইছি ম্যাডামের দিয়ে। সবার একটা উপদেশ থাকবে যে সবসময় মন সরল রাখতে হবে, ধৈর্য ধরতে হবে। ধৈর্য ধরলে অনেক কিছু ধৈর্যের গুণ আছে। ভবিষ্যতে অনেক গুণ থাকবে আর আছে।
If you want a more peaceful world, then make tonight the moment where your purpose and global peace begin.